friends. I have my dear friend Emily here with me today, and we are going to be talking about health and her Just Be project and so much more that I think you guys are going to get a ton of value out of. I can't wait to introduce you to her. Emily is the founder and owner of Wholehearted Health with Emily. And so we're going to let her tell us a lot more about her. So, Emily, if you will just share a little bit about who you are and how you've gotten to this place in your journey and kind of what you're up to now.
Thank you for the introduction, Whitney. I would love to do that. So, I am a daughter of the king. I am a wife. I am a dog mom and soon to be adoptive mom. We have been in the process for a couple of years now for adoption. This has always been on my heart. I have always wanted to adopt rather than give birth. When I was a little kid, I had talked about it. And so I'm very thankful for a husband that was on board with this non-traditional path. So we're riding that wave right now. And how did I get into the work that I'm doing? Really, it's from the burnout cycle that I had lived before. I was working hard, I was doing all the right things. I am a type A, I am an Enneagram 6, if anyone out there can relate to that. But I truly felt exhausted and misaligned in all of that. And I realized I couldn't keep sacrificing my health, my time, my energy, and really my calling under it all. So my faith led me to a better way. Now, as we grow our family through adoption, I'm even more motivated to help other women rise, mind, body, and spirit in all of those areas because they're all important. We can't achieve in one thing if we're not truly achieving in just being still and listening to what the Lord has for us too. So God gives us these unique gifts. And I believe that with the right tools, like DNA-based nutrition, aligned mentorship, we can actually steward those gifts and create a life that we don't want to escape from. That's my goal.
Yeah, I love that. To create a life you don't want to escape from. I can relate. I'm also a type A, Enneagram 3, high I on any other personality test profile, like the influencer category. So I love being around people, giving of myself. But there are those points in time where you just hit a wall. And I was actually talking with somebody recently about the level of burnout where it feels like a train wreck, where you're like, you see yourself responding to situations and saying things that you're like, this is not me. Like, what is happening right now? But you can't stop it. And I know I'm not alone in that. I've heard from many other CEOs and people who have run companies who've reached that level of burnout because it's taking so much more from you than you are prepared to give, especially through the pandemic. Like anybody I feel like who was in a high profile role, leadership or otherwise, through the pandemic, it required a whole other level of just energy and expertise. And it left a lot of us super burnt out. So I love your Just Be project that's focused on kind of that holistic health. Can you tell us a little bit more about what does that look like? And you kind of alluded to how you got there, but tell us a little bit more about the story that led there, if you don't mind.
I would love to do that. Yes, stories heal. I am actually headed to church right after this tonight to do more deep story work and continue to dive into that because it's so important that we tune into these things because they do matter. So I'm somebody that struggled with anxiety. I was on 2 different medications for that. I was pulling out clumps of hair in the shower, like having my hair down like this would not have been an option before. I did not have a menstrual cycle as a woman for many years. I was overtraining, undereating, but I was following all the messages that were out there. Like I said, exercise, eat right, this is good, this is bad, trying to keep up with it all. And I was exhausted and I hit that breaking point. And so we tried to do some holistic practices to dive in and see what was happening with hormones. And eventually I had to go and seek, the next level of care. But I didn't like the way that I was cared for because we just kept getting kind of passed along to the next person. And I had to do a lot of needle pokes. I'm terrified of needles. Okay. So, like, one was enough. And there were multiple because that's just a snapshot in time. Remember that piece of the story. I'll come back to that. But I will never forget being at the last specialist's office and not having an answer again. And I said, if I can just be given a plan, I can knock it out of the park, but I have got to know what to do. And so I'd seen some others that were sharing about a completely personalized approach based on science, HIPAA compliant, and it was based on actually your genetics and learning that you don't have any bad genes. We just learn how to work with your body instead of against it. And I looked at my husband, I said, we're doing that. I'm like, we're not going to this next person in this line. We're going that way. I have such a good feeling about this, and I have never looked back since. It only took about 90 days to start to see some changes. One of my favorites is my girlfriends were like, your hair is thicker and you're happier. What's going on? Right. And so then you just get to naturally share when you feel good, you want to express that goodness to other people. And so a business was born in that process. You mentioned the pandemic. I started to open up and here we go again, share my story online because I could reach way more people in a day than I could ever go and personally touch here, right? And you never know who's struggling behind closed doors. When we open up those pieces of our story, that invites other people to also write theirs. And I knew this answer that I had that gave you a forever blueprint of your body, not a snapshot in time, forever blueprint to understand and be empowered, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night keeping that quiet.
That's that's amazing. So when you talk about kind of your journey of health, what are some things that really stood out to you about creating a more like holistic, health-centered lifestyle?
So I was really moved to know that I was not broken. I finally had an answer as to where that anxiety was coming from. And that first came to fruition. Actually, I was seeing a psychiatrist for many, many years. And I said, I don't want to be on medication anymore. What are some natural ways? He talked about vitamin D3 and omega 3. I'm like, oh, I can go find those. But the problem was, I was going in and I did my research. It was a great natural health food store, but I was still guesstimating. I didn't know exactly how much I needed. I didn't know the right amount, and I sure didn't know the right time of day to be taking it. I didn't even know that was a thing. I thought you popped all your vitamins in the morning and you were good to go for the day. Not the case, right? So when I first took that health assessment and understood, oh, that's when I need to be taking these vitamins. And oh, that vitamin isn't even doing anything for me. That narrowed it down. Then, when I did the DNA layer, simple cheek swab to give that overview, I have increased requirements for vitamin B6. That is directly related to melatonin. Hello, I couldn't fall asleep or stay asleep ever. And also serotonin. That deals with our mood. So I finally saw I'm not broken. Now I have an action plan of how to work with that. Alongside that, I had some really great women, people, couples, healthy marriages surrounding me in our community, showing me the goodness of God. And when you can lean into Him, things will really take off, not only in your health journey, but everything else too. So that was the trajectory of how it all kind of played out.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I'm somebody that has struggled with anxiety and sleeping as well. And so I can relate to the struggle, and not sleeping messes with so much more beyond anxiety. I mean, it just is holistically, how do you manage all of that? And I remember through the pandemic, leading an organization and just feeling like it was constantly behind, and it felt like information was changing every 6 hours, right? And so you were constantly pivoting and trying to figure it all out. And I just learned to sleep on 4 hours a night because I would wake up in these panic attacks within, about 4 hours of falling asleep, probably about the time my body should have been setting into like the REM cycle. It
Yeah.
was instead waking up like in a cold sweat and like my heart racing, and just this running list of all the things I wasn't getting done. Because to your point, when you're not sleeping and then the anxiety's there, it begins to wreck your health. And so I experienced some health issues out of that. And that's about the time that I realized, like, this is not sustainable. I was also working like at least 12-hour days, sometimes 14 or 16 hours to keep up with the demands of the job. And so you paired that with not sleeping. It was a recipe for a disaster. And so I love what you were saying about, obviously being able to manage all of that and understand the medical needs and when to take things and everything like that. But what are some other solutions? You mentioned community, obviously, focusing on the goodness of God, gratitude. What are some other ways that we can bring health into our journey?
I think prayer is so powerful.
Yeah.
I really, when I started to understand that God loves me unconditionally, taking hold of that and talking to him like he's somebody that was my best friend. That was a pivotal moment for me. And that actually came from the founder of the company that I do a lot of this testing and work with in my business. Him saying boldly and explaining, like, he had to just lay in bed and be like, okay, God, if you're real, give me a sign. And from that moment on, he just decided to ask for more and talk and communicate. And so that spiritual health side of things, man, I don't know how I would get through some of my hardest days. You were talking about not sleeping. I had a season last January where I couldn't, again, I couldn't fall asleep. I couldn't stay asleep. I had a really great bedtime routine. I was nailing it on paper with everything. I had a lot of my answers and I couldn't figure it out. And I had to hit this point where in my kitchen, stand by the door every day, get that sun on my face, listen to worship music, cry, and say, Lord, I need you. I don't know what's happening. I don't even know how to pray or what to pray for, but I need you. And to have that spiritual force carrying through, I don't know how people do it without, like, truthfully,
Yeah.
it was so powerful. So, prayer, I'm not going to sit and tell, I mean, I could talk for days about get morning sunlight. That D is so good. Exercise, move. Like, I could talk your ear off about all of those things. We know those things, but that is something that is critical as well.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about that some because
You
I
want to
do
hear
think yeah, yeah, because I mean, you think about a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, we're living in the day-to-day task. And for me, like I don't have a family. It's really easy for me to work till 9 or 10 o'clock at night and be like, oh, I need to shift gears and go eat some dinner. And, like it doesn't even dawn on me. And so I've tried to integrate like a midday walk into my routine so that I'm getting that sunlight and that walk. But for those who maybe are in an office or have a different routine, let's talk about what are some of those rhythms and what's the importance of that because that is crucial to our health, mental and physical, right?
I'm going to give you some of my favorite tips for my
Bring it.
busy people. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
One of the biggest things I can tell you is nutrition is always going to be super important. The amount of people that I work with that are in my same shoes before that are under eating is crazy. So we think we're eating a lot. We think we're getting enough protein, but when we actually track it, tracking tells the truth. That's not necessarily the case. And so one of my favorite things to teach people is my 37.654-second breakfast, literally that I have every morning. It is so easy. You're getting quality fuel into your body, protein base first, right? And then making sure, again, don't skip breakfast. Coffee is not breakfast, my busy people. Okay. We need to get some protein and some fuel in the tank first.
You just stepped on my toes a little.
From there, then, if you need a great idea, I'm happy to share my Brookie Brekkie bowl. It's the best thing. I will send anybody that recipe card. I love it. From there, then, every 3 hours is a great general rule of thumb. Now, again, when we have that genetic blueprint, we can see exactly. I get asked a lot, is intermittent fasting good for me? What do I need to be pairing with that protein? How? That blueprint is really going to give us those details. But overall, what I teach people is every 3 hours, it's good to be popping something in that mouth. Protein, pair that with a quality complex carbohydrate fat source, right? We're kind of pairing things together so that our body is able to not feel unsafe. Like, when is she going to feed me again? Whitney, can we please not work until 9 p.m.? Like, I'm hungry. Then our body holds on to fat and it stores it. And then we run into problems. So, making sure that we're eating throughout the day. And one of my favorite tips, if you don't have time to get to the gym, okay, how about after every meal, you are taking 10 minutes, set a timer, go for a little walk. There is so much to be said about a post-meal walk. Some movement, it's great for blood flow, for digestion. Getting that sunlight on your face helps to set the circadian rhythm. But first and foremost, let's look at that nutrition. Make sure you're checking the ingredients. My claim to fame, this is a fun one. There is one peanut butter on that whole shelf at the store that I will touch because the rest of them are full of oils causing inflammation and a storm of issues. So make sure you're being wise with your ingredients. If you need some help, I got you on that. Eat well, Get out in the sun, grab 10 minutes of movement after each meal as much as you can. And that's a great starting point, really.
Yeah, I love that. That's very succinct for somebody that is in a busy rhythm of life of how do you find 10 minutes after a meal to go for a walk instead of feeling like you have to go spend an hour at the gym, and that just feels overwhelming and like time you don't have to give. And the 3-hour eating rule, I probably should set an alarm on my phone to remind me.
Exactly. Yes. Set
But
an alarm on your phone. That's what I tell people. Like, I promise you that's going to go off. And you're like, what do I need to? Oh my gosh, Emily, she's in my head. I've got to put some food in my body. It's that girl. It's okay.
I
I'll be
love
the
it.
one.
I love it. My friends laugh at me because I can actually forget to eat, and that's not a great thing, I know. I'm the task-oriented part of me wants to focus on getting things done, and so I can get caught in that and not pay attention to what time it is or, what my body needs, and so that reminder, I should actually set alarms to remind me to stop and take a break from the computer, eat something, maybe go for a walk. So just to clarify, when you say 10 minutes after you eat, that's like your 3 primary meals, or is that every 3 hours?
If you're going to do it every 3 hours, game on. We are not going to outwalk ourselves. That's great. Starting point, that I'll say to people is like the breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Of course, you want to be having snacks in between there, but if you can do it after those three, awesome. And make sure that you are filling in those individual gaps because unfortunately, we just cannot get everything that we need from food. You can be the cleanest eater in the whole wide world, but you cannot out diet, out train, out exercise underperforming cells. So I love helping people to get those individual answers to fill in those gaps too.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I know shifting gears just a little bit, but, thinking about health rhythms and anxiety, mental health, things of that nature. We've talked a lot about, in our conversation prior to this, about like perfectionism and trying to move away from trying to strive really and exhausting ourselves in a much different way, a more emotional, mental, spiritual way, by trying to live into this mold of like perfectionism. Talk to me a little bit more about that. What have you learned in that area?
Oof. Perfectionism is dangerous, but I think being aware is the first part of it because for so long I just thought I was being the good girl. I was doing everything and we get awarded for that, right? Like it's something that's celebrated. So over time, that led to me believing that that was good. It's really good. Just keep being good. But also, then I was being robbed of really experiencing life because I was so caught up in being ahead, making sure everything was done right. I didn't really have any learning opportunities because I was so focused on getting everyone's opinions and seeking approval and reassurance. It's still something that I'm really working through, but recognizing it and being aware of it. My business coach will say, "Hey, you're aware of this." Because I'll say, "I don't know why I'm asking you this, but" awareness right there, right? We're seeing that. So perfectionism can be a good thing because you get things done, yes, but really it can be detrimental, especially to our souls when we put our worth in that. And that's where my Just Be project really came from in the beginning.
It's amazing. Yeah. I feel like perfectionism can cripple us from our purpose, right? Like in perfectionism, I am white knuckling my life, trying to keep a handle on everything and make it go a certain way. When in reality, he's like, just release this. Trust me with the results. I will come through. But to your point, self awareness helps, but there still is that tendency within us to like grasp for control.
One of the things that I found really helpful, there's a book that I read earlier this year and it's called Happy Not Perfect. And so I think a lot about what she talks about, where when we're having these thoughts, if something doesn't get done or we start to worry about something, the first question is it true? The second question is it really true? I'm like, oh, girl, you knew I was going back in my head of, well, it could be. So we ask again, is it really true? The third question being, if it's true, what are we going to do about it? coming up with your acceptance plan, right? Like kind of walking through those steps with ourselves and processing through that. That's been helpful for me. Do I always remember to do that? 97% of the time, I don't. It sounds really good though. And when I have it written down in front of me and I can see it, awareness. I'm also not trying to be perfect and be hard on myself when I don't remember that. I give myself grace. That's a new word that I'm learning. I tend to give grace to everybody else. I coach on that. I preach that. But guess who gets the least of it? Me. And I suffer internally for that. Um, my coach had also said, I'm a very black and white person. She's like, how about gray? I'm like, I don't know. I want to find it. So now my husband knows too. When I'm getting into black and white mode, he's like, how about that gray? So it's nice to have people around you that can help you become aware, because sometimes we don't always see it happening either. So to kind of have your accountability partners, if you will, that can see that in you and can give you, out of a loving way, a gentle tap of, guess what? His grace is sufficient. We've got this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the beauty of community and in marriage, if that's your season, is having somebody that holds a mirror up at you. Like I've learned a lot of times in my life, if there is somebody that I struggle with, that I'm like, they're really difficult. I don't enjoy being around them. I have to ask myself, what am I seeing in myself in them, right? Because it's generally not a them problem, it's a me problem. And I need to figure out what mirror are they holding back at me that is making me kind of like shrink back from it, right? And be like, oh, I don't know that I like spending time with them. And there are some people that are just not your people, right? Like that's an okay boundary to hold too. But to your point, like I'm really great at giving grace to everybody else, but not so much myself. And sometimes it's like when I'm ready to stiff arm somebody who's giving me a lot of grace and being very kind to me, what is it about me that's being reflected back? Because it's not a them problem, it's a me problem.
That's so good. What do you want me to know about this situation? God, that's a new question I've been asking myself lately. Jamie Winship had said it on something I was listening to, and I'm like, "Ooh, that's good." That reminded me about what you just said. Like, God, what do you want me to know about this situation? Instead of, why is this happening? Why am I so angry and upset? What do you want me to know?
So, something you had mentioned in a prior conversation about your Just Be project is how to work less.
Working less to be more?
Yes. Tell me more about that as we've talked about like health and perfectionism and some of these themes.
Yeah, I hired my business coach almost 2 years ago now because I wanted to work less. I said to her, this is going to be very different. I don't need any more strategies. Listen, I've got ideas upon ideas in my head. I need to learn how to not work so much. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm like, I want to be a wife. I want to be a better dog mom. I want to be an adopted mom. I need to find Emily again, because I tend to get very caught up in my achievements. I can put my worth in that, I put my excitement in that. All of my conversations and my thought processes can go to that. So recognize that me saying this out loud right now, I'm still not perfect. My husband will always remind me of, hey, can we not talk about this? Like, we could talk about that tomorrow. Can we just like have date night? I tend to just get so excited and all of the things that I could achieve and do when I'm robbing myself again of what's right in front of my face, the present moment. And so my Just Be project is to just be. I'll never forget one of my first mentors when I stepped into our incredible health and wellness space in our company. She said, do you ever just go for a walk and like listen to the birds and walk slow? I'm like, no, that sounds terrible. She's like, good, we're going to do it. So a normal Emily, my husband will tell you this story. If I was walking, it was going to be at least 3 miles and it was going to be fast paced, because if we're exercising, we're exercising. That's not what it's about. Exercise is to boost endorphins. Exercise is to help us live well for a long period of time. Exercise is not to chase an image, which I unfortunately did for so long. Had to learn the hard way around that, right? It's about just being.
Mhm.
And so all of these things, like over the last, couple of years that were bubbling up, I wanted to actually do that. I hit a rock bottom point where I was really losing sight of myself and who I was. when you mentioned earlier about like saying things that you're like, did that come out of my mouth?
Yeah.
That's not me. So that is what Just Be is all about, is to learn and take steps in grace and recognizing. One of my favorite courses I teach now is about God's goodness and favor for your life, because I had to learn to pause and see that. And I love to help other people do that same thing too.
It's so true. And it's an art. I guess, I mean, even learning how to Sabbath, right? Like Sabbathing is a command, but learning how to be still long enough to actually hear from him. Again, going back to the Jamie Winship thing, right? Like to actually sit and listen and wait for his reply. In
Hmm.
our society, that is just not a thing. And especially on our like little triangle of the Enneagram, like we are doers, we're performers, like we need to be in action. And so learning how to be still to receive from him and to listen for his voice is not an easy thing.
No, this month, so I have every month I set an intention of just a Bible verse that I really want to focus in on, like what's hard on my heart right now. And the Sabbath is one that for a while, I started to practice that. A great mentor had modeled that to me. And then I got into a slippery slope of, well, I could just check messages because I'm connecting with people. We're called to be in community. But again, if I really searched my heart, it wasn't about checking messages. It was about, okay, I'm getting ahead because then I'm going to have less things to do on Monday. And it was that spiral of mistrust. And so going back into that again, I truly do. Now on Sundays, because I love it, I will put some sort of a story post up on my Instagram and Facebook that points back to the Lord. If I can be one little piece of somebody's puzzle of seeing the joy in that, I will absolutely do that. But I'm getting back to honoring the Sabbath day. And this month specifically, Exodus 31:13. It is a covenant. It is a sign that we are gifted. Seeing it in a new light of, it's not a punishment, it's a gift. Emily, recognize that and rest in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then from that, to your point of like the just be, there's an anchor and identity for that too, right? Like I'm not striving any longer trying to prove my worth or my value. I get to be filled up in those moments and have sound direction, to have a sound mind, to act, to take thoughts captive, all of that. But I can't have all of that if I'm not sitting with him to just be, and then from the wisdom given to me in his presence, be able to then act in accordance with his will, not me driving my own will, right? Because I've done that for years too, where you're you're chasing your dreams, and then one day you wake up and realize, I don't think this is quite the plan that God had for me. I'm still positioned, he's still going to use it, but I might have veered a little off course, or at least gotten a lot more selfish in the process.
You're speaking my language right now. Listening to that, I'll say previous Emily would have said, that is gray. I want black and white. What do you mean I have to wait and listen for the answer? On what day does that come? On what time does that come? Like black or white, pick one, Whitney, no gray. I don't get it. Where now I'm like, Dad, what do you want me to know about this? Take a step back and pause and see. Is it always that beautiful and easy? No, I have to go back to what I explained before, the questions of, is it true? Is it really true? Going through all of that. But taking those moments to actually, again, become aware of that and see that, that has led to incredible experiences. I think I was telling you, me sharing this story about my control, my perfectionism, my fear. I have now been on 3 podcasts just this month to share this story alone. This is something that I didn't think was ever worth sharing. And earlier this year, I was able to be on our stage at our national event with my husband, taking 20 minutes to share this story. The president of our company asked me to share, and I said, listen, this isn't going to be like previous years, Emily. Like, I can give you all the business tips and tricks, but like, this would not be that story. This is me telling people not to work so much. Or really, are you sure? Absolutely. I want people to hear the control and the perfectionism and the trust story, the real Emily story, so that other people can discover their real selves too. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing in the world. And I never thought this was going to be what I was going to be sharing. So I am so thankful for what the Lord is doing. And the more I lean into that, the better it gets. But it's me getting out of my own way of the path, like you said.
Yeah. I had somebody ask me that. I guess it was about a week ago now. They were like, what does it look like to get out of your own way? Because I said that, like, I feel like if I could just get out of my own way, then God could really do what he wants to do, right? Like, and some of that is my insecurities, my sense of inadequacy if I'm not performing and doing, right? But it's like, what does that actually look like? Like, if I'm really honest with myself, what does it look like to get out of God's way? And why am I not getting out of God's way? Right? Like, it's really that simple. It's not simple, but it's that simple, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You're rocking the gray. Looks good.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. I live in a gray zone. Okay. So, something else you've talked about when we were talking prior to this conversation, and you've alluded to it a little bit too, is like this sense of community. And so, how do we find like this sense of people we want to take the journey with?
Right here. I have got my prayer card right in front of me. Every day I ask God, I can't do this on my own. Striving is exhausting. Bring to me the people that I am meant to serve, that I am meant to be in community with, and that are going to bring and give positive energy. I need your help. I cannot do this on my own. I release my control. And I pray that every day before I start. That started a couple months ago, and some amazing connections have happened because of that. Stepping more into who I want to be, that will in turn show who I want to attract. And he will bring that back to us, that expectant heart that you're talking about. So that's one way that I encourage people is to pray over your connections in your day and release that control side, release that to the Lord, but be very intentional too. Think about the things that make you excited to talk about and find places where you can find other people that do those things too. Example in my world, I love health things. I love women. I love helping busy women see that they can rock this out too. And so I'll be in different Facebook groups of moms or women in business where we met. It was a faith centered women's group, right? Utilizing those spaces where people will hang out, and don't be afraid to send a message and reach out. I reached out to Whitney because I'm like, girl, you seem awesome. We should connect. And here we are. So don't be afraid to be bold and courageous and make those reach outs and connections too.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge part of like unleashing our purpose. It's hard to get out of our comfort zones, right? Especially when we're the controlling type. Like, I don't want to be uncomfortable. That's one of my idols is comfort. And so to put myself out there to make the ask for sales can sometimes be challenging. But to your point, like some of the greatest connections that I've made in the last few months, specifically related to like people that are like, oh, you should meet this person, be on the podcast, or like Facebook groups or LinkedIn connections that have just happened organically, have literally like we've had such great conversations and it's like molded my life in incredible ways. And it's like, what would I be missing out on in becoming who God's creating me to be if I'm not creating opportunities to receive those connections and show up in these spaces and have the margin for connection?
A margin for connection. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, talk to me about one of the questions I like to ask everybody is what is a fear or limiting belief or obstacle you've had to overcome? And then what does that look like for you?
So my fear is time. My biggest part of my anxiety is a fear of running out of time. And so I can never, I won't say never, but I really struggle with being content with what I have right now because I'm looking ahead on my calendar and, oh, I can get ahead on that task. I wanted to do it Monday, but I can do it today. No, I'm going to go sit outside in the sun today. My business coach and I have a daily method of operations so that when the daily method of operations is done, Emily can, at some point go and be mom. My work can be done within a couple of hours, really, if I'm being diligent about it. But that takes me not wanting to get ahead and go to the next thing and worry about the next thing. So my biggest fear is always time and running out of time. And that goes right back into control, perfectionism, And it goes back to my childhood and my story where I didn't have control over a lot of the things that were happening in my life. My parents were divorced. My mom's parents were divorced. Lots of just trauma and experiences within that. And so control was my comfort when I felt like I could really be the one driving that bus. But now unpacking that as an adult to allow myself to see the safety of the Lord, where I don't need to be in control of so much of that. And fear of failure, really. We talked a lot about, idols and achievement and success. And so one of the things that I do, I talk about this planner all the time. I have used it for years. The beginning, I love how it asks about visions for the year and what do you want more of and what do you want less of. And so more of this year, I wrote testing what ifs. What if I don't plan out my meals for the week ahead? What if I go and experience something on a weeknight that I wouldn't normally go and do because I have a bedtime routine? What if? So that's overcoming my fear of failure and just taking these little baby steps, testing the what ifs, testing the waters, finding that gray and working through it.
Yeah, I love that. I think I had the conversation with somebody else about like the what if becomes like it starts with a what if, and then what comes from the what if, right? Like, then if I do this, what's the action? And it's like, but how many times do we get paralyzed in the if of what if, and we never get to the then? We never take the action because we get paralyzed in the perfection of, but if this happens, then, it's not the what if. What if I can get there? Then I get this. We just get stuck in the if and we never take action and we never move beyond that. And I think that's something that I've had to learn a lot in this journey of like entrepreneurship and podcasting and life in general is like I have my computer's propped up with a Reba McEntire cookbook. And I was looking at it, I was like, Reba with a cookbook of all things. It's kind of weird. It's not what she's known for, and it's like, but she did it. She went after it because why not? Because there's so much opportunity in life. Why not? But I think we can get caught in that, like the fear of failure or the what ifs or, the different things, sense of control. Like all of this feels uncomfortable, unsafe, unfamiliar. And, we look at the Israelites back in Exodus, like they're like, hey, can we go back to the familiar? Like that may be captivity, but at least we knew what we're up against there. Like this is all unknown. This is scary. And it's like, no, there's so much greater purpose. There was a promised land. There were all these things ahead of them that they couldn't yet see, but they had to step into that to be able to access the many incredible things that God had in store for them.
Well, I think you kind of touched on it before, like we get so paralyzed in the what if that we don't take that next step or we just want to go back to that comfortable spot because it feels better. This is why it's so important to share your story and share these pieces that maybe you're feeling ashamed of or you're feeling not proud of. When we say it out loud, that allows somebody else to bring that grace and love back to us. So when I started to voice these things, like to my business coach, my planner would be full of scribbles and marks. And every month I'd have 50 names and people written down that I wanted to do all of this with. And so she actually gave me a what if, right? She's like, what if we didn't do that next month? I'm like, oh, well, that'd be terrible. Right? I have all of my answers on I could never, right? But then I thought, Emily, you wanted to test more of these what ifs. And it was her gentle reminder to me of, you're not going to royally mess anything up, Emily. You're not going to fail. You're still going to show up for your business every day because I know you. It's going to be okay. Guess who doesn't have a crazy list now every month anymore? Because I stepped into that. So sometimes it's nice to have somebody else challenge you. They know that struggle because you've been brave and willing to open up to that. They can give you that what if challenge statement and paint the picture of what the other side could look like as well for you, like what the Lord did, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Man, that's so good. What is something that we haven't talked about yet that you would love to talk about? I mean, you've kind of alluded to your story. I don't know if you want to share a little bit more of that, or just anything else that we haven't talked about that you're like, this is what I would love to be sure we cover today.
I think something that I want everybody to know that they're open to is my Facebook community. I love, and the story of this is so fun because it's a Facebook group and it started at nobody. It was me. And I kind of used it as a space where I would share some things. I didn't know how comfortable I was putting them on my personal page. So I kind of put them here, and it started as a little like party group. There are almost 2,000 people in there now. And every day I'm like, what? How did this happen? And it's because I just wanted to continue to have a space to celebrate people, to give them a resource hub. I was just telling the person on the phone before this, like, if you ever need an easy crockpot recipe, girl, go to my group in the search bar, type in crockpots, and 100 are going to pop up. They're all clean. You know that they're going to be easy and well thought out for you. I love to just be that resource and that safe space for people. Every Friday, we celebrate. I ask, what is a blessing that you've seen this week? And so we have these moments to lift each other up. And I don't think that there's enough positivity in this world. So if nothing else, I know, Whitney, you've been so kind to add that to the show notes and to share. But I'd love to invite anybody into my Wholehearted Health with Emily community to taste and see, as I call it, the joy and the celebration that everybody can have in their life.
That's great. You guys be sure to connect with her on there. And are there other ways apart from that Facebook group that you would want them to connect with you, or is that the primary way?
That is really, Facebook is my main hub. I love it because there are so many opportunities to build connection. So my personal page is Emily Schwartz. You are not going to find a business page. It's our group. I love to share all pieces of me on my personal page. So Emily Schwartz, the Wholehearted Health with Emily Facebook group. I am also on Instagram, and I also podcast. So if you love some short little clips, the Wholehearted Truths, you will find 10 minutes or less episodes. But I got to say, Whitney, this is fun being able to really dive in, because when I go through and with guests, it's quick. I'm like, I'm sorry, you got 2 minutes to answer this question. So this has been such a delight today. Thank you for all that you do.
Of course. Well, thank you for being a guest and sharing your insights. And there's a fun contrast of like the attention span of people. Like 10 minutes is really a lot more bite-sized, right? But I'm also somebody that at least time and a half, if not 2x's most things in my life if I'm listening to them, right? Like this is terrible. I get bored now listening to things in real time because I'm like, I need this to go a little faster.
We are the same, girl. We're the same. And my husband's like, did you even hear what they just said? I'm like, yeah, keep up.
Yeah.
Let's go. Come on.
Yes. Yes. My years in corporate, we used to watch videos. And at first I was like shell shocked. I was like, how do people listen to this? And now it's like, oh, I can't listen to something in real time anymore. And so I understand, unless it's live, right? But so I'm like, well, at least like 45 minutes if you're double timing it. Like it's within the attention span frame, right? I don't know. But to your point, I love the conversations and being able to dig in and really understand the heart of somebody and how do we grow as believers, but also as individuals to be healthier stewards of what God's entrusted to us. So thank you for being a guest and sharing your insights today.
Thank you for having me.